Okay, Professor Coomer here, virtual classroom. We're talking about audience awareness. So audience awareness is the next step in the writing process, and I would argue it's one of the most important steps because it really matters who you're speaking to as far as how you're going to tell a story, or how you're going to explain a point, or how you're going to go ahead and try to win an argument. It really matters who you're speaking to. So for instance, you might tell a story, maybe it's the story you're thinking about telling for essay 1. You may tell it differently depending on the audience. For instance, you may tell it to your best friend versus maybe your grandmother or to me. All three of these things will be the same story, but you're probably going to tell it slightly different because of a few things. First of all, whenever it comes to age demographics, right? So someone your own age versus someone I'm a little older than you, probably twice as old as you, versus your grandparents who would be maybe older than me, maybe in their 60s or 70s or whatever, maybe 50s, I don't know. But the point is, you're significantly older than you. We're going to probably all have different frames of reference. So you're going to need to provide context. Now, I'm a stranger, right? I'm a person that's not in your family, and I don't know you as an individual. So you're going to tell a story to a person who is a stranger in a different way than you're going to tell a story to someone who's already in your family versus someone who at least knows you and has a pretty decent idea of who you are and probably can make some assumptions about how your family works, or maybe you've even told your friend about how your family works or what your family looks like. So whenever we're thinking about audience awareness, we have to think about, okay, what context do I need to provide? What can I assume that my audience already understands? So that way we're not going all day telling someone about something that they don't care about, and we're not going to skip over something that, wait a minute, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're not going to confuse your audience. It's really important to think about audience awareness. So all we need to do is, you can do this in two ways for your assignment. Essentially, you're going to need to decide who your audience is. Now, I'm going to give you a pointer on this one. I'll make it pretty easy. Your audience is the classroom that you're speaking to. So the people in your class. So you can pretty much make some assumptions about the people in your class. Now, does this mean that everyone in your class will meet this criteria? No, it does not. But it does mean that by and large, you're going to be successful in communicating your ideas to your audience. Okay, so let's just think about a few things. And hey, you can even use this. You can hand in a paper that's almost identical to this because I just want you to really think this through. And if there's anything that I don't think of on this video, please add it, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and brainstorm, okay? My audience, okay? Who is my audience? So your audience will be most likely, if it's people, and we're just going to say, okay, so people in my English 101 course. Okay, so there are people in my English 101 course. So what do we know about people in our English 101 course? Well, they're probably, we know, first of all, that they're in college, right? If they're in your Comp 1 course, they are in college. So they either just entered college or they have a pretty good understanding of how college works. Right now, you're probably a college freshman. It may be that this is your second year in college, right? So we don't really can't say exactly where this person is, but we could probably say it's a person probably in their first or second year of college. And that means some things about the college experience you're going to need to explain. Some things maybe you won't. And I guess that's if it's a college story. And for most of us, like for instance, with my story about ruining the soda that my mother gave me, I'm not going to need to explain anything about college because it didn't happen in college. So if we think about college people, we can also think, okay, this means most likely the person is going to be at least 18 years old. And probably no older than maybe 22 or 23. Now, again, that's not always the case. Every year I get a 17-year-old, and every year I'll get somebody in their 40s. And, we're just trying to shoot for the maximum possible good when it comes to, I want to try to speak to my audience. Now, and let's face it, if you're shooting for 18 to 23, it's not like a 17-year-old is that far out of this. And it's not like someone in their 40s is not going to understand a lot of this stuff either. Okay, so, but we're just doing our best to speak to this audience in a way that they understand. So we've got this, we've got the fact that, okay, we are Vincennes University. The vast majority of the people in your class probably come from the United States. And you can even go so far as to say they probably come from the United States in the Midwest. Okay, so when it comes to issues of how the Midwest is, you don't always have to explain everything. You may have a sentence or two, maybe if it's important that your audience understands that you live in a rural area where there's a lot of farming, or maybe you feel like, well, no, that's not where this happened. It's important that they know this happened in a city environment, because that has something to do with the environment of the story. Maybe it has something to do with the way the story works out. Well, okay, maybe we need to make sure to mention that. But if you think about my story, I didn't have to mention if I lived in a city or in the country, because it didn't really matter for my story. So you just really think about those sort of things. You can also go down the list depending on what you're writing about, and we're going to get more in depth with this as we continue this semester. But for a story about your life that teaches a lesson, you're going to need to think about this. Okay, is the person in your family or not? Well, no, probably not, because if this is a class, and I would doubt it, it happens now and then that maybe a sibling or a cousin or something like that is in the same class that you're in. But most of the time, you don't have a family member that's in your class. So you'll need to provide some context about your family or how things work. If you think about my story, I told the story of soda pop, right? And I had to tell you that this was a rare thing for me whenever I was a kid. My family always bought the cheapest soda, and we rarely ever bought soda at all. And so I gave you some context so you understood how valuable soda was for me as a young child. Okay, that was important for you, because if you didn't know that, maybe you would tell this story. Maybe I was telling us, maybe one of you guys, soda is not something that's uncommon for you to drink. Maybe I drink a soda every day. My parents buy Coca-Cola and Pepsi and the name brands or whatever, and I drink that all the time. Why is it such a big deal? Not, for this guy. Well, I had to tell you that, right? So it was important for the story. So I wanted to make sure my audience was aware of the value of this thing, right? So we have to think about that when we say these things to our audience. Now, so you can think about the different aspects of your audience. That's one way. That's one thing I want you to do whenever you're doing audience awareness. The other thing I want you to do is make a list of the things you feel like you're going to have to tell the audience. Okay, soda was rare. Okay, soda is rare for my family. Okay, I need to tell you that I was 4 or 5 years old. Why would I need to tell you that? Well, if I told you that, if I didn't tell you how old I was, you might assume that this was like last week and I'm just so stupid, right? It's forgivable and cute for a 4-year-old to mix water with a soda and ruin it, but a 40-year-old is just sad, right? It's just sad. So I needed to tell you that. You needed to be made aware of these things, because I can't expect you to know this already, okay? And so there's those things. Now, I don't think that I need to make you aware that when you add water to soda, it ruins it. But I did say, right? I did say that it was ruined, okay? So I didn't need to let you know why, but I did at least say, hey, it was ruined and I was upset and, and this and that, right? So when we are doing audience awareness, we need to think about who we're speaking to, what are aspects of these people that I need to be aware of, right? I'm assuming since it's an American audience, they know what soda is. But if I was speaking to an audience where, I don't know, someplace in the world where they don't have soda pop, I would need to explain that, or else this wouldn't make any sense. So, and then I need to think about, okay, these are the things I need to explain so my audience is aware of all the different aspects of my story. So again, this is audience awareness. For your assignment, I'm going to ask you to write a paragraph explaining what you think you need to explain and what you don't need to explain. You can also do some brainstorming, and that normally helps a person before they get to the paragraph, but you need to write a paragraph just explaining who you think you're speaking to and what you need to explain, what you don't need to explain. All right? Go ahead and get started.